Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF. Mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who truly understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify your fitness journey so you can lose fat, regain your confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Come on, let's go. Hello there, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. I'm Nathalia Melo, your host. And the inspiration that I got for today's episode was a question that I received at the time of this recording. We are hosting our 7-day holiday shred challenge. And for context, whenever this episode comes out, the challenge is going to be over. But I think that there is something to be learned from the question. And I appreciate the member of the challenge that asked this question because he really did give me the idea for this podcast. The goal of the challenge, whenever I put it together, was because one thing that I have noticed throughout the years, being a fitness professional for 15 plus years and being in fitness for at least 26 years, there have been a lot of holiday seasons that I have seen come and go. And one thing that I see consistently is the inconsistency of most, especially women, during the holiday season. There's so much going on. You have Thanksgiving in this house, Thanksgiving in the other house, and then there is this work party, and then there is a presentation for your kids, and then there is a dinner after that, and then there is a work holiday party, and it's hard. We cannot just pretend that it's not a challenge. And yesterday, whenever I was doing the Q&A for the 7-day holiday shred, there was a question that came up around one of the habits that we have in the challenge. And the goal that I had whenever we put together the challenge was to help women stay consistent with habits that are going to build the foundation for them to keep on getting results. And I really wanted these habits to be very straightforward, create a very low barrier of entry. Why? Because for me, it's most important, be that somebody in the challenge or somebody that we work with in the Powerhouse Academy, the main goal is that there is a consistency. It's not hard for somebody to show up 2 times a year and do the best workouts of their lives, go balls to the walls and be sore for a month and call it a day. That's not hard. What is most challenging for the majority of people is to show up consistently in a schedule that works for their lives, day in and day out. Some days, even whenever they're not seeing very significant physical changes. Let me explain what were the habits that we were nurturing in the 7-day holiday shred challenge, because then it's going to give context. We kept it very simple. There were 4 foundational habits that we wanted those that took part to stick with. Number 1 was to post photos of all their meals. That's all they had to do. There is a body of evidence that supports the idea that whenever people become more aware of what they're consuming and they have to report, that on itself makes them make better food choices that are more aligned with their goals. So that was the first one. And then the other one was 3 workouts for 20 minutes. That's it. That's all they had to do. It could be either be from home or the gym. And then the days that they were not getting the workouts in, they had to get at least 15 minutes of movement. Walking the dog, going around the block. I don't care. Something. Go for a bike ride with your kids, go cross-country skiing. It doesn't matter. Something. 15 minutes. That's it. So at least 15 minutes and then the 20 minutes workout, then posting a win for the day for gratitude. Because I think it's so easy to get caught up on all the buzz of life that we forget the importance of being grateful. And then the other one was to increase their daily steps by 250 steps per day. So the goal wasn't to be like, oh, you need to get 10,000 steps, because again, too much of a gap if we're talking to somebody who is only getting, let's say, 4,000 steps a day. So the goal was to slowly add more, 250 today, 250 tomorrow. So those were, we call them the 4F4H, foundation for habits. So 3 workouts per week, 20 minutes each, 15 minutes of activity on the other day. And then number 2 was to post pictures of all your meals in the app. The other one was to get 250 steps per day, and then to share a daily win or something that we're grateful for. And whenever I was walking through this, very straightforward. And then somebody asked me a question. They were like, Nathalia, on the days that we are just doing the 15-minute walk, what heart rate zone do you want us in? Like, is it zone 1? Is it zone 2? Zone 3? Great question. But here's the problem with this question. And I love that this person asked. So I'm not, roasting her here at all, because her question represents how most people operate, which is the overcomplication of things that just need to be done. And I find that we have a big problem in the fitness industry today, which is the overcomplication of shit that doesn't need to be complicated. Whenever we're talking about 15 minutes of exercise for someone that is barely doing anything, it doesn't matter if it is a walk outside with your dog. Those 15 minutes are going to be better than sitting on the couch. But there is this, I like to call mental masturbation, that comes from overcomplicating stuff, because there is an idea that just because something's complicated and it's more intricate, that is going to be better, which couldn't be farther from the truth. And, I take this from my own personal fitness journey. Even whenever I won the Olympia, which is a time that if there is any time that you are to be a little bit more diligent and intricate with the ins and outs, you would be whenever you are competing in a bodybuilding competition that is the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world. And it's funny because as I look back, there were some overcomplications, but the thing that made me stay consistent showing up day in and day out were the modifications that I made to keep things as simple as possible. The whole idea, oh, you have to have like X amount of meals per day. I couldn't stay consistent with that. Why? Because at the time I was bartending and I couldn't stop to eat every so hours. I was working 3 jobs. The whole idea, oh, you have to do cardio, after you left because otherwise everything is lost. I didn't. Why? Because I was much more likely to stay consistent by doing my cardio first. Why? Because I didn't enjoy cardio. I enjoyed lifting. So if I got out of the way, the thing that I enjoyed the least, then I was much more likely to finish because the thing that I enjoyed the most was still pending. Do you see what I'm saying? So I find that there is always this obsession with overcomplication. And I see this in the holiday season. Oh, should I carb cycle? No. If you are eating 3,500 calories and your caloric deficit number would be, let's say, 1,800 calories, it doesn't matter if you're carb cycling or not carb cycling and you're eating 3,500 calories. You're over consuming calories, period, the end. So there is always this need and this worry. Oh, what supplements should I be taking? Probably none, because if your diet is shit, there is no supplement that is going to make up for an overconsumption of calories of like 1,600 calories, 1,700 calories, whatever the difference is there. And the more I start to see, I have started to realize a few common ways in which people overcomplicate, which is the endless research. And listen, I'm a big fan of researching, okay? But whenever you're spending more time planning to plan than actually doing the damn thing, we have a problem because you're overcomplicating and you're over researching and spending so much time on the theory of it that by the time it comes time to action, you're tapped out, you're exhausted. So if you have a little bit of information, keep things simple and take it from there. Because if you're constantly planning to plan, it's kind of like, the people that have a meeting to plan for a meeting. Oh, let's meet so we can plan for the next meeting. Why don't we just plan the fucking meeting to just talk what we need to talk about instead of having to book 2 meetings to talk about, you know what I'm saying? So have self-analysis. Do you catch yourself planning to plan? Because that might be a way to procrastinate and overcomplicate things. Another common way that I see people overcomplicating is constantly chasing quick fixes or trends. Oh, what supplement are you taking? Oh, what's the name of the diet that you're doing? They're constantly jumping from one trendy diet or trendy workout or, the latest gadget and the latest thing that they think is going to change their lives. When in reality, they have not taken the time to objectively even look at their schedule and see what is something that they can realistically stick with on a day-to-day basis. And listen, I know that novelty is sexy. I know that novelty is fun. But what is going to give you results is not the latest diet with the coolest name and that has the most steps. What is going to give you results is to show up with something that is simple, which is then going to allow you to do it day in and day out. The other thing that I see a lot of people doing that they overcomplicate is focusing on the details over the basics, obsessing over supplements. What the exact cardio timing is best. Should I do cardio before? Should I do cardio after? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that these are not important things, but I see it time and time again that people are so worried about what's the best time to do cardio or what is the best supplement to take or what is the best gadget or smart watch or whatever the fuck it is or the best cup or the best of everything, that they use their energy to focus on the 3% that might move the needle instead of focusing on the habits that they can consistently do and that is going to drive the 97% of the results. Because if you're taking supplements and you are overanalyzing on what time is best for you to do your cardio, but you are not eating in a caloric deficit, you are not being consistent with your workouts despite having the most beautiful workout on the planet, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's like the person that pays for a gym membership and never shows up. You can have a gym membership to the most, like the fanciest gym on the face of the earth. But if you don't show up, you're just going to have a very fancy gym membership that does absolutely nothing for you. So how about we focus on the habits that need to exist in order for you to first even show up to do something? It might not even be the gym. It might be that you start at home with 15 minutes of something. And which then brings me to my next point and last point on common ways in which people overcomplicate their fitness goals. And this is particularly challenging during the holiday season because this is a time that people are so limited with time that whenever they are overloading their workouts with too many exercises, and it's a workout that requires like an hour and a half, but realistically speaking, you just have 30 minutes, you're not going to do it. You have all these fancy exercise, these fancy workouts, these fancy machines that whenever you objectively look at your schedule, you cannot show up to do because you don't have the time. So the idea that more is better and that overcomplication is going to be the best solution is what is keeping most people is stuck in their fitness journey. And this is particularly true during the holiday season, and this is from another conversation that I actually had today. I was doing a call with someone who is interested in joining the Powerhouse Academy. And whenever I was talking with her, she was mentioning that she used to work with a trainer. And over the summer, life got very busy because she had some work trips and personal trips and all of that. And the trainer is great and the gym is amazing and all the bells and whistles are great. But she had to put a pause with the trainer in the very nice gym with all the bells and whistles because she couldn't stay consistent with it. And then by default, she went backwards. So what is more important? Is it to have the best trainer in a gym that is going to see you and quote unquote hold you accountable and blah, 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 that you have to be there, but then not have a strategy that supports you whenever life gets busy? And that's one thing that we work very diligently with the members of the Powerhouse Academy because life is going to happen. And that's when somebody comes to us and they're like, oh, I need the accountability of somebody in person. That's great. But if you're struggling to show up because you have a busy schedule, how is it that adding somebody else's schedule in a busy, beautiful gym is going to make your life easier instead of having something that is going to meet you where you're at? Keep things simple. And maybe it might be a season that you have to do something at home. It might not give you like the popping muscles overnight like you would from training with a lot more variety in a gym. But which one is better? To put a pause and go backwards or to keep on moving forward, maybe not at the same speed, a little bit slower because maybe you're not going to have as much time to dedicate. Maybe you're not going to have as many fancy equipment, but you're going to continue to show up even when life gets busy. Which one is going to give you a better chance of long-term success? The consistency, right? Because that's where a lot of people get stuck. Whenever we start to get a little bit more into the kind of psychology of it, we can start to see why people overcomplicate. There are several reasons. And some of them that I normally see is a fear of failure. Oh, the perfect plan with all the stars aligned is what is going to give you the guaranteed result. But here's the thing. There is no perfect plan. There is the plan that is going to be perfect for your life in that specific moment. And it's a constant that is going to have to be adjusted because life is not linear. And that's a very good example for the holiday season. Like I'm going to use myself as an example. Ideally speaking, in a perfect universe, I like to spend at least 90 minutes training. But I know, realistically speaking, that during the holiday season, this is not feasible. Today, for example, we are kicking off the 7-day holiday shred. I had lots of stuff to do. My training session wasn't even 40 minutes. And that's okay. So understanding that there is no perfect plan, but there is the perfect guidance that is going to be able to modify the plan and adjust the plan as life changes because life is going to continue to change. The other reason that I find why people overcomplicate their fitness journey is information overload, which kind of goes back to that mental masturbation that I was talking in the beginning. I find that social media is giving people a lot of stuff. There is a lot of like these bits of information that most don't know how to apply to their lives. But because they have the bulk of the information, oh, I know what to do. But there is a difference between knowing what to do in theory and knowing how to do it in real life. It's kind of like, even if you look at your own profession, okay? Look at your own professional, whatever it is that you went to school for. And it's funny because I was getting my makeup done this past weekend for our family photo shoot. And this is a conversation that I was actually having with the lady who was doing my makeup and the lady who was doing my hair, is that they went to cosmetology school. And then I was like, how much of it did you find that it applied to your day-to-day life? And they were like, nothing of it. Like I just used some of the very basic stuff, but the majority of the things that I have learned has been from all the experience that I've had working with different faces, different people, different skin tones, and different preferences. And that's basically what the information that is being given on social media is doing, is giving people this sense of like expertise, but they don't know how to apply it. And then they stay stuck. And then the information overload, it's like they want to do everything perfect. Everything is perfect and complicated. But here's the thing, on social media, people are trying to get your attention. And what gets attention? Novelty. But novelty is not what gets you success. I'm going to say that again. On social media, people are looking for attention. And what gets attention is novelty, not simplicity. But what gets results is simplicity, because simplicity leads to consistency. Which then we're going to piggyback here into the third reason why people overcomplicate their fitness journey is like the perfectionism that we're kind of like talking, the fear of failure and believing that every detail has to be right out of the gate. It's not. Even whenever we're looking at our lives, whenever you started driving, probably wasn't perfect, but you got better as you start to do it. And then a lot of people have like that paralysis because they're like, oh my goodness, things are not perfect. But the thing is that most people don't even know what quote unquote perfect is going to look like for them, because they are basing the idea of perfection on somebody else's lives. I like to use as an example the members that we have in the Powerhouse Academy. We have somebody that has 6 kids, and we have somebody else who is a pilot. And then we have somebody else who is a pediatrician and works 14 hours a day, 13 hours a day. All these ladies are going to have a different idea of what perfect is. If we have our pediatrician who works, 13 hours a day, trying to compare her idea of perfect with our member that has 6 kids and it's primarily at home, she's going to feel like a failure. And the same thing is going to happen if our lady who has 6 kids tries to compare her idea of perfection to our pilot, because they're completely different lives. And it's also going to be based on what your priorities are, because my idea of perfection is going to be very different from the idea of perfection for my next door neighbor. And then the other reason why people like to overcomplicate their fitness journey is a need for control. Complicating things as a way to feel control or ensure of success. But the reality is that this constant obsession with control, and listen, I get it. I'm a control freak too. But sometimes you have to let it go and understand that, one, there are people better than you to do specific tasks. But I realized with time that I have a coach. Why? Because a coach is going to be able to much more objectively look at my behavior and help me create change. Because it's sometimes very hard to self-analyze and let it go of things that you do just because, quote unquote, that's the way you do things. Well, but if the way that you do things is so amazing, then you would be where you want to be physically, and yet you might not be. So something has to change. So you're going to have to let go. And then the last reason why people overcomplicate their fitness journey is a misconception that exists about effort and complexity, and that assumption that just because something is complicated is going to get better and faster results, which couldn't be farther from the truth, because the problem that most people have, especially women, and especially now during the holiday season, is a lack of time. And novelty and complication require more what? They require more time. So the easiest way for you to accomplish your fitness goals during the holiday seasons and beyond is to keep things simple. And it's funny because this is one of the biggest challenges that we have as coaches in the Powerhouse Academy, because I'm a big fan of simple. And whenever somebody joins and we send their plans, it's simple. When I say simple, simple, simple. And what I find, I'm going to go on a tangent here, so stay with me here. What I find is that a lot of fitness professionals, they like to overcomplicate stuff to justify a higher price tag to their services. And listen, I'm very guilty of it. I've done it in the past. Oh, I need to do a bunch of stuff and I have to give all this stuff. I have to make things very complex so people can see the value. But the busier I've gotten with 3 businesses and with my 2 kids, I work some days, 13, 14 hours, is that complication doesn't serve me because it makes it much harder for me to stick with it. So that was like a come to Jesus moment that I had with even the way that we were coaching, because I was always feeling like we had to make things more elaborated and complicated just to show service, just to justify the higher price point that we are. But with time, what I realized is that people don't need more stuff. They need someone that is going to be very clear and take all the noise out, bring everything back to the bones, and you start fresh from there. And I've caught myself like several times speaking with somebody who has joined the Powerhouse Academy. They're like, that's it. And almost trying to justify. And the reality is that I have kind of stopped with the justifying because it is just such an obvious thing in the sense of if the problem that most people have is a lack of time, especially now during the holiday season. And whenever I speak with them, the first thing that I hear all the time is, oh, I cannot get to my fitness goals because I cannot stay consistent. So we have a problem of lack of time and lack of consistency. Why in the world would it make any sense to make things more complicated and more extensive? Extensive, like longer period of time. It doesn't make sense. So the importance for results and to accomplish your fitness goals is to keep things as simple as humanly possible. Keep the barrier of entry as low as possible. And then you can build from there. And, whenever the simple shit stops to give as much results as you want, then we can start to incorporate the more complex strategies. But quite honestly, even for me, I've been doing this for 26 years. If anybody watched my diet and watched how I train, they would be blown away. There is absolutely nothing fancy about it. Nothing. Oh, Nathalia, but what about like protein timing? Don't have that. I just make sure that I'm hitting my caloric needs for the day so I can maintain my weight and that I'm eating enough protein to maintain muscle mass, primarily spread like between 3 or 4 meals every single day. That's it. No, but what are the supplements that you take? None. Protein powder. That's it. And this is 26 years doing this. And I see a lot of people that are just like beginners again. And I like to say beginners again because I find that a lot of those that gravitate towards my content have some experience in the gym, but maybe they have been not as intensely invested in their fitness journey for some time. So it's almost like you're being a beginner again. And I find a lot of people that are getting back into it wanting, oh, because I'm more advanced. No, you're not. Nobody is too advanced for the basics. My husband played professional sports for 15 years. 15 years. If you look at his programming, you're like, the fuck, is this it? Basic. And he's 43 years old, has been able to maintain his physique, and is on like 0 gear, like none. So it doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles. So here are some tips for you to stop overthinking and start taking action right now. Number 1 is set small and achievable goals. And what I mean by that is objectively look at your day-to-day and set goals that you can stay consistent with and that they're not so big that it makes you feel scared. So for example, instead of going right out of the gate. During the holiday season, I need to burn off all the food that I'm going to eat, which I'm going to open a side note here. That's not how it works, but I digress. So instead of being like, oh, I'm going to train every single day for an hour, how about we set the bar a bit lower and we're like, okay, success for me during the holiday season is going to be to get 3 20-minute workout per week. That's it. If I can get more, great. But the goal to celebrate success is 3 times a week for 20 minutes. Maybe you don't have time to go to the gym and it needs to be done at home. Do it at home, because something is always going to be better than nothing. Second tip for you to stop overthinking and start taking action is, and I hate to say this because it almost sounds like I'm encouraging you to stay ignorant, but that's not it. Limit your research time, because what I find is that you have people that go and take advice from a vegan, from a carnivore, from somebody that says that breakfast sucks, and then somebody says that breakfast is the best meal of the day. And you have all these contradictory ideas, and then you just kind of freeze because you don't know what the hell to do. Especially, for example, if you're working with a coach, and I know that is a big ask because there are a lot of coaches out there, they're full on fuckery. So I know that is a big ask to ask for the trust, but do your due diligence leading up to working with a coach. Ask to speak to existing clients, ask to speak to the actual person. Like, that's one of the reasons I like to do a lot of the calls whenever somebody's interested in joining the Powerhouse Academy, because I'm able to put people in contact with existing members all the time. Because I understand that the fitness industry is oversaturated with fuckery. And I want to make sure that people come in already trusting us. We're not going to have full trust, obviously, until the person actually starts to work with us and see results. But I want to make the person as comfortable as possible to understand that we have their best interest in mind. So limit the amount of research that you do, because you're going to end up with paralysis by analysis, especially because there is so much conflicting information on the internet. Another tip to stop overthinking during the holiday season and start taking action is to track your wins and reset your expectations, at least during the holiday season. Because what I see a lot of times is people setting themselves up for failure by setting goals that don't align with that particular season. For example, let's say that in the holiday season, we're talking about roughly 6-8 weeks. Out of the 6-8 weeks, you're going to be going to parties at least 2 or 3 times a week, and you're going to be gone traveling for 2 weeks. If you have not been able to lose a significant amount of weight, even when you had control of all the variables, is it a realistic expectation to be, you know what? I want to lose 20 pounds in the 8 weeks that I have until the end of the year. That's the Lulu. And you're setting yourself up for failure. So make sure that you're tracking and outlining what wins look like for you in this season. Maybe your win is going to be, you know what? My win is going to be to just be able to maintain, to not gain like most people do. That's it. I just want to maintain. I want to make sure that I'm getting my 3 workouts per week. That's my non-negotiable. So set the expectations and track your wins in a way that you're not setting yourself up for failure right out of the gate. And just to wrap up here, it is very important to understand that taking perfect action will always beat the perfect plan that you never start, which that's a problem with the over research that a lot of people do, which becomes like that procrastination. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, no, you're just mental masturbating. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're collecting information to do absolutely nothing with it. But then that is going to give you something to justify to the universe. So I'm doing my research. It's funny. I have a friend that whenever I got in law school in Brazil, she was already halfway through 1 degree. We're talking about 23 years ago. She's still studying for different jobs. I don't think that this person has had a proper job in the past 23 years because she's just researching what is going to be the best career and what is going to be the best course. 23 years, she's been doing the exact same thing and taking more courses. And listen, big fan of knowledge, but knowledge without action means absolutely nothing. That's why you have so many people that are smart and that have amazing degrees that are not successful because they're always looking for more information and then they don't know how to apply it. So you need to take action, even if it is not perfect. And what I want to encourage you to do as we wrap up this episode today is, what is one thing that you can stay consistent with throughout the holiday season? That you can objectively look and be like, I can stay consistent with it. Is it 3 workouts, 20 minutes a week, 20 minutes each? Is it a mile walk every single day? Is it that you are just going to eat out 2 meals per week? Everything else is going to be homemade. I don't know what that looks like for you, but find that one habit that you know that you can stay consistent with, because sure, you can pause and, I'll think about my fitness whenever the new year rings. But then you're going to be pushing yourself backwards. By the time January comes, you're going to be even farther from your goal. So now is the time, because the reality is that there is always going to be something. Right now is the holiday season. And then January is the winter blues. And then February is still cold. I've had people say, I can't work out because it's cold. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You live in a cold place. Tough life. In March, you have spring break. And then April, there is spring break in other places. And then May is when my kids start getting off school. So it's like the beginning of the summer. So there is always going to be something. So if you're always waiting for that perfect time and for all these stars to align, you're going to keep on pushing yourself farther and farther from your goal, waiting for the perfect time. Because the reality is that there is no perfect time. There is no perfect plan. There is the time being now, and the perfect plan is the plan that works for your life. I hope this episode was helpful. Make sure that you leave a review. If you have any questions and if you have any suggestions for topics, make sure that you send me a message. Normally on Instagram is the best place, or in the link down below in the show notes. I'm the one who is on my DMs. I would love to hear from you. And don't forget to leave that review on Apple Podcasts, or give a 5-star, preferably, on Spotify. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Adios. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram. Links are down below as well. And let me know what topics you want to hear more about, or who I should have on the show. This is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.